Believe in Britain. They say we can't do it. We say we can.
Brexitcast
From BBC 5 Live and BBC News.
Who knows about Brexit? No one's got a fucking clue what Brexit is.
Brexit is...
If there is some difficulty to have the agreement of the Brexit, is my fault.
What do you think about Brexit? What's that?
This is the moment to chuck checkers.
A process which I cannot describe as a dog's Brexit.
Remainers and Leavers, that's going to end well.
It's like this mad riddle that no one knows what it is, right? So what's happened to that twat David Cameron who called it off?
You're joking. Not another one?
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you?
And if we both leave and take back control, I believe that this Thursday can be our country's Independence Day.
Hello Brexiteers and welcome to the podcast. We're recording live from Westminster on this historic day as Parliament is about to resume in Westminster. It is the 2nd of September. The Remainers and the Leavers are out in force as the new Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, looks to secure a deal from the European Union. He has been issuing threats over the weekend that any Conservative Member of Parliament who votes with the opposition and against what his government wants will be deselected and unable to stand at the next general election. It is increasingly febrile atmosphere at Westminster as both sides dig in hard. The opposition parties, including the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, the Green Party, Plaid Cymru, SNP and Change UK, have been gathering support and meeting over the summer to discuss the way forward. They met in a church to sign a declaration saying that they were going to go for the legislative route, not to bring down the government and install an alternative government or a government of national unity. So over the weekend we saw Remainers protesting on the streets and holding rallies up and down the country, calling for stopping of the coup. They believed it was a coup that Boris Johnson, in his decision to prorogue Parliament. The Queen agreed and allowed Boris to prorogue Parliament for 5 weeks. An extraordinary accomplishment of the Prime Minister. Nobody saw it coming, nobody thought he would do it, but he did it. And he sent his Minister of the Privy Council, Jacob Rees-Mogg, up to Scotland to get royal assent for what he had proposed. This sent the Remainers up the wall, and they started rioting in the streets and calling for the Queen to be beheaded. Extraordinary scenes were seen when Remain protesters marched on Buckingham Palace. They said it was a coup. They said that they needed to defend democracy, even though they've been spending the last 3 years trying to overturn the biggest vote in British history. An extraordinary thing to see, but that's what they believe. They really do believe that they are defending democracy. The trouble is, they're defending Parliament, they're defending our politicians, our failed politicians that have let us down and are so unpopular with the country at large. What must the country make of seeing these people on the streets demanding that Parliament has a say, demanding that Parliament sits, demanding that Parliaments keep on debating Brexit even though they've spent 3 years coming to absolutely nothing? What must the public think of this chicanery, this charade, this absolutely disgraceful behaviour by these Remain protesters? They are deranged, they're increasingly demonstrating the signs of Brexit derangement syndrome. They are screaming in the streets as October the 31st deadline comes closer and closer. So we now turn our attention to the week ahead, and what a momentous week this is going to be. On Tuesday, Parliament returns from the summer recess. Jeremy Corbyn has been working on the legislation over the summer, and we expect him to put a bill, an emergency bill, which the Speaker will of course grant him. They are going to take control of the order paper, like they did with the Cooper-Letwin bill over the summer. Mr. Speaker is a prominent Remain campaigner, and is said that he is willing to bend the rules to favour the Remain campaign. The Brexiteers face an uphill struggle, as they face a Parliament which voted 75% to Remain, a House of Lords which is even more Remain, and a Speaker who is in effect the umpire on the side of the Remainers and willing to give them the ball at every opportunity. Boris is increasingly looking like a strong Prime Minister, but he is increasingly running out of patience with the Remain House of Commons and the Remain House of Lords. It looks like a general election is on the cards as the only way to break the Brexit deadlock. So will the legislation go through? Will those Conservative MPs cross the floor and vote with the opposition to take no deal off the table and not allow Boris Johnson to call a general election until after the European summit and not after a no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October? It looks like the legislation will say that the Prime Minister cannot call a general election until a Brexit deal is agreed. This would not allow him to call a general election after the October the 31st deadline and leave by default, which is the preferred option of him. What will the Labour Party do after 3 years of campaigning for a general election? Looks like Boris is going to come out strong and say that enough of this chicanery, enough of this nonsense, enough of this playing games, I'm going to the country. But then they'll try and stop him going to the country because they know they'll lose. So we face the prospect of a weak Prime Minister being kept in Downing Street by the opposition, an extraordinary thing to witness. When would you ever think that the opposition would refuse to let the Prime Minister call a general election? It looks weak. It looks like they're scared. It looks like they don't know what they're doing. So surely, when this law becomes law, when it passes the House of Lords, Boris Johnson has said he will refuse to give the law royal assent in the national interest, because he believes that if the European Union don't believe that we are credibly going to leave on October the 31st, then they are not going to budge. They're not going to budge on the backstop. They're not going to budge on the withdrawal agreement, Theresa May's deal, which has failed 3 times to get through the House of Commons. So both sides are digging in strong. Only one side can win. Who will win this totemic battle, and how will it end? I think British politics is about to go into 5th gear, and increasingly go at a febrile pace. Every day we'll be seeing events dominate the news agenda. As the Remain side hit back, and then Boris counters, but then the Remainers hit back in Parliament, but then the Speaker intervenes. Extraordinary drama, as one side battles against the other. This civil war goes on and on. Will the Brexit drama ever stop, or will we still be talking about Brexit in the next 20 years? Will we leave? Will we remain? Will there be a second referendum? Or will there be a general election? So many unanswered questions, so many choices. Our politicians have the nation's fate at their hands. What will Boris do? Can we trust him? He has the weight of the nation on his side. 17.4 million Brexiteers are willing you on, Boris. Can you do it? Will you do it? We will find out very shortly. So tune in next time for Brexiteers.